they knew what they were doing, and they did it on purpose as far back as 5,000 years. Now, on down the line, the Romans are documented to have made soap around 100 AD, so 2,000 years ago approximately. And the story goes that the way they figured out how to make soap is there was a big mountain, still is, it's called Mount Sapo, S-A-P-O. Well, on top of this mountain is where they would make sacrifices. They would burn animals, hopefully not people. And when they burned these animals as sacrifices, the fat from the firing of the animals would drip down the mountain, ashes from the fire would drip down the mountain and into the river. Now, what caught women's attention is when they washed their clothes at this particular part of the river, at the foot of Mount Sapo, they were way cleaner than any other part of the river. And so they figured, well, there's something to this spot. And then over time, they intentionally made their own soap. Now, pioneers made their own soap using a big black kettle like the one over there on the post. That's called the hot process. And they usually made their soap about the same time that they butchered hogs, because you've got to have fat. You've got to have some kind, if it's not lard from animals or beef tallow, then it needs to be something like olive oil, which is a fat. But anyway, they would gather up fat from cooking in the kitchen. They would save it back. They would get extra fat from the hogs when they butchered them, and they would fill this container up about halfway. Okay? Now, we were using this pot earlier to boil candle wax. That's why we're not making it with the hot process today. But it was halfway full of fat, equal parts water, and then they would throw in a big ball of potash or lye. Chemically, it's sodium hydroxide or potassium hydroxide. Now, pioneers leached their own lye. They made their own before they could buy it at the store in a can. And what they do is they get a big crate with a sift in the bottom of it, little tiny holes. They would line that crate with the holy bottom with corn husks, good and tight. Then they would load a bunch of ashes, okay, potash, load the ashes from the chimney or from the fire pit on top of those corn husks, and they would drain rainwater over the top of those ashes. Then that water would pass through the ashes and through the corn husks into a big pot that they had underneath the crate. Now, that lye water needs to strengthen, and it will happen over time. But the question is, how do you know when your lye water is strong enough to produce soap? Well, they would put a raw egg into the lye water. If the raw egg sank to the bottom, it wasn't ready. And that might happen over a couple of weeks' time. And you've got to get the tongs and pull that egg out. You can't just leave it, because that will be nasty. But when you do drop that egg in and it floats, you can see about the size of a quarter of that egg, then you know your lye water is ready. Now, I tested that out. Kathy and I both did, because we thought this is interesting, so let's just see if it works. And it did. And we made some really, really good soap, leaching our own lye. Now, that's what you call the hot process. Your lye water and your lard, and you're going to stir it over heat until it looks like lumpy pudding. It takes about 4 hours, the hot process. It's hot for everybody involved, okay? Plus the pot's hot. But once it looks like lumpy pudding, you're going to start ladling it out and into a big wooden crate. Grease down with a little Crisco, any kind of fat. Then they're going to let that big crate full of soap sit up for 24 hours. After 24 hours, you can cut it into what we would call bars, and they would call cakes. And this is what they got. Okay? This is actually made using the hot process like I described. Okay? It's used for washing clothes, it's used for washing the floor, as well as for bathing. Now sometimes they weren't real careful on their measurements, and what they actually produced would take the hair off. You know? You've probably heard stories about lye soap. But if you measure out your ingredients just right and don't take any chances, you can make some good, squeaky, clean soap. And that's what I do. Hot process is fine. Let me tell you how to make your own soap using the cold process. You need the same ingredients: water, potash, and lard. Water, potash, and lard. Now, the first thing is to be sure you have a recipe and measure your ingredients better than the pioneers did. When you combine your water and your lye, you don't need any children hanging around because this stuff is caustic. If it splashes your skin, it will burn, okay? If it gets in your eyes will bleed. You don't want little children around lye water. That's why this rope is here, you know? When that water and lye are combined, it will immediately become 185 degrees. That's hot. And even when it comes down to 100 degrees where you could put your finger in it, you know, and it not burn from the heat, don't, because it's still caustic, okay? Now, once your lye water does become 100 degrees, you mix it in a pot full of lard, about 2.5 pounds. Now, pioneers would have used lard from having cooked bacon or fried pork chops or cube steak, and they would throw the pieces of meat in their grease. They'd throw it in the pot. They liked it that way. And they knew that their mixture was the right ingredient, so they thought when that potash, that lye, ate the meat, when it started to sizzle and dissolve, just like it would your skin if you got splashed, they knew they had the right ingredients, the right amounts. So, our lard is clean, and you got lye water. Now, making soap is not something you can say, well, I'm going to do it right now, and we're going to have this thing done in 20 minutes. It takes about, usually, 2 hours for the lye water to come down from 170 to 100. Well, I knew y'all didn't want to sit here for 2 hours waiting for that to happen. But once you combine your lye water and your lard in this pot, you start stirring. Now, you could use just a regular old spoon, but you'd be there a while. Get one of these stick blenders. Now, no, they didn't have electricity in the swamp, ever, never, ever, but we cheat. When your lye water and your lard look like pudding, that's called trace. And it's ready to add your lavender and your color. Then it's poured into molds, and I had to go ahead and pour this up because that lye water got cool fast, I guess because we've had cool, dry weather. So I had to go ahead and do it when it said I'm ready. And this is brand new soap, okay? It was liquid like pudding, but even in just the hour or so that it's been sitting here, it's already firm. Now, if you stuck your finger in it, it'd probably make a dent. This time tomorrow, this brand new soap will be firm enough that we can flip it out of the mold. And then we're gonna sit it in a box under the bed or in the closet and let it cure for 3 weeks. That means it's gonna continue to dry out, and that process of the soap becoming soap, I'll explain that in a minute, will happen. But it takes 3 weeks for saponification to occur, okay? Get it? Sapo, Mount Sapo, soap, saponification. It's the process of soap. Now, what went in as fat, okay, oh nasty lard, becomes glycerin. That's good for your skin. What goes in as lye and water becomes soap, okay? All you need is 3 ingredients. Now, when you make your own soap, you know you have glycerin still in it, because who would know how to get glycerin out of soap? I don't. But the people that make it and sell it to you and me at the store, they take a lot of the glycerin out of their soap. Guess what they put it in?
Bottle of soup.
Yeah, they put it in cosmetics, they put it in lotion. So if you want to know that you're using soap that still has glycerin in it, then you might want to try making some of your own, okay? Now, pioneers did not buy their own soap like we did and do. They made it for themselves and would usually make their soap about the same time that they butchered hogs. And this was a big event. People would all gather up for the hog butchering and the soap making. They would shuck corn. They would build people barns and just make fun out of what really was hard work, but things that had to be done. Now, if pioneers did have to go to the store, the trading post, they would usually get 5 things. Do you remember what they were? What did they have to get at the trading post?
Gunpowder.
Very good.
Flour.
And coffee. That's it. Excellent. There's 5 things. Coffee, salt, lead so they can melt bullets, gunpowder, and flour so they could bake biscuits or cakes. But nothing else did the pioneers need here in the Okefenokee. Now, do you have any questions or comments about how to make soap? Well, let me make this suggestion. If you want your soap to last longer, because sometimes it seems like those bars haven't been there but a day or 2 and they need to go. If you'll take your soap that you buy at the store out of those little boxes and put it in a shoebox somewhere under the bed or in the closet and let your soap cure for 3 weeks, it will last you way longer than if you don't do that. Okay? Any questions or comments?
Where do you buy your molds at?
I get them wherever they have some cute. You can get them at Michael's or at Walmart.
Right, Kroger?
I haven't seen any there, and I haven't seen any good molds at Hobby Lobby. I like Michael's and Walmart, and you can order them too, and they're not very expensive. They can withstand about 500 degrees, so it won't hurt them a bit to make soap. Now, when you make soap, and I hope you take this up as a hobby, don't wash your dishes in with the dishes that you eat with. I mean, you can use your dishwasher to wash this stuff, but don't ever cook in it again with something you're going to eat, and run the dishwasher with just your soap making stuff, okay? And what's even better is to wash it in the yard. That way you don't take a chance on clogging up your sink and having to pay the plumber $80 to come and clog it. All right, any questions? Well, yes, sir.
Yeah, I'll take that thing.
Well, I made all of this soap over here, and because it's Valentine's Day, I made it with olive oil and goat milk. And if you're interested in some to give to your sweetie pie on Tuesday, I've got some ready to go, and I've got them in decorative little boxes. All of it is olive oil and goat milk, but some of it is lard. Can you believe it? That is just what I mixed up there, lard, water, and potash. So keep these in mind. And the heavier they are, the little bit they go up in price. But they go from $3, $3.50, and $4. These are the $4 bars, and that will last you a long time. Good and heavy. Any questions or comments? Did you remember your question? What is it?
My nanny has goat soap at home.
Thank you.
My nanny has goat soap at home.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. You don't want to wash with this? That's ugly, isn't it? That's okay. Pioneers would have used it anyway.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, y'all remember we have other activities. You might want to check your schedule, and there will be some cloggers ready at 1:30, but you'll need to walk through these two buildings to get to the parking lot where they're ready. These ladies have been ready to clog for 6 months. So, they're going to be good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Very